Welcome back. Here is where we left off. We're looking at the Shape2D class, and so far what we've done is we've created two constructors, one that takes construction parameters and initializes the variables inside the object. Here's another one that we also created that if the person creating this Shape2D object doesn't provide any parameters, we just initialize all the variables inside the object to 0. We also created get and set functions for each of the 4 instance variables, so we added this line to our code, private int x, y, width, and height, because all our shapes are going to have at least those 4 characteristics. Instead of typing all this in, what I suggested was to go to the refactor menu and then go to encapsulate fields and then check all these boxes. Mine have already been generated. If you haven't done so yet, check all these boxes here, and that will automatically generate all of these methods here. This is a lot of redundant typing, and it would be better to have the IDE do this. So we're going to make a child class to this so that we can eventually be able to draw some of these shapes. Now to make a child class, well, first we have to just make a class. So the way you do that is you right-click on the package name, and our package name is called Java Review. So we'll right-click on that, and we'll say New. And sometimes these are in a different order, but make sure you select Java class. And the new class we're going to make is going to be just called Rectangle. That's going to be our first shape that we define, that we'll be able to draw at least. And just say Finish. And notice this time it creates a rectangle class, but it doesn't put in a main method because we already have one here in the Java Review class. But we have to add something here that tells the compiler that this is going to be a child class of the Shape2D class. A rectangle is basically just a type of Shape2D. So the keyword we use here is extends, and then we say Shape2D. So public class rectangle extends Shape2D. And that tells the compiler that this rectangle belongs or is a child of Shape2D. Now for this rectangle to work, we're going to need constructors as well for this rectangle class. Now, does the rectangle need any more information? I guess that's the first question to ask in order to be able to draw itself. Well, we know a rectangle has a width and a height and an x and a y. So I think that's all we need. So all we need to do is feed into what we've already created in Shape2D. So we can say public rectangle, and just like Shape2D, we say int x, int y for its location on the screen, and then we say int width and then int height. Okay? And the interesting part here is we just want to call the constructor for the Shape2D class. We don't have to recreate an x, y, width, and height. We already have that in the parent class. So the way we initialize those is we call the parent class's constructor. And the keyword for that is the word super. Basically, we're calling the super class. That's another name for a parent class. So you say super, and then you pass in the x and the y and the width and the height that we got as construction parameters to the rectangle. And that's pretty much it. We'd also want to provide a default constructor for the rectangle class, and that's as simple as just calling the super class's constructor, passing in nothing, and that will call the default constructor for Shape2D. So now we've just created a rectangle class. We didn't have to provide accessors and mutators because those are already available under Shape2D. we didn't even have to put in instance variables for x, y, width, and height, because those are already provided by Shape2D as well. We'll see later on that we'll add a lot more to rectangle, but for now, that's basically what we need for that. Now, the last class I want to create is the square class. And if you think about a square, you realize that a square is just a special kind of rectangle. So instead of creating a square class that is a direct child of Shape2D, it would be better to make a square a child of the rectangle class. And because a square is a rectangle, it's just a specialized form of rectangle. So let's do that now. I'm going to create a new class. Again, I go to Java Review, I say New Java Class, and we're just going to call this one Square. Okay. Here, instead of extending Shape2D, we're going to say extends rectangle. Cool. And you'll note down here in the class navigator, it sees that relationship, so it shows us that a square is a rectangle. And then just like before, we create constructors, so we say public square int x, int y, int width, int height. And all we do is call the superclass, but in this case the superclass is the rectangle, but we don't even have to say that, it knows that. So we say super x, y, width, and height, and it will inherit, it will initialize all those things. It'll go to the rectangles constructor, which eventually we'll call the constructor for Shape2D, and finally x, y, and width heights will be set inside it, and then we'll also make a default constructor as well that takes no parameters, and all we have to say is super. Alright, so I think now we have at least the start of a library of classes that will describe geometric shapes, and we're going to use these geometric shapes all through the term to learn about this concept of inheritance. Remember, inheritance is described as being able to inherit things from a parent class. So, for example, from the Shape2D class, we were able to inherit the instance variables x, y, width, and height. We'll find later on that there's a lot more we're going to add to the Shape2D class that we're going to be able to inherit, and then we don't even have to specify that here inside these child classes because that'll be automatically available. I think that's all I wanted to do today. So why don't we stop there, and we'll pick it up here next time.